All right, it's 9:36 now here on WDEL, the 15th annual Feed a Friend Food Drive, and I'll have some info in just a few to let you get up to speed on how you can take part today. Brought to you this hour by Ashley Home Store. Hey, let's talk a little job market, specifically your place in it, potentially. There's a lot going on, and frankly, a lot of confusing information. And when things get like this, we call in the resources, the heavy guns. Chris Burkhard, Placer Staffing, is here this morning. Good morning, Chris.
Happy Thanksgiving, Pete, to you and your audience. Thanks for the heavy gun. I appreciate it.
Yeah, let's make you earn it now, because we have some things.
I'm going to need to.
Yeah, the labor market's strong. Okay, we add 261,000 jobs last month, but the job market, Chris, appears to be a contradiction right now. We see a few cracks here and there. Can you maybe shed some light on that for us?
Absolutely. There are cracks appearing. There's more jobs created and filled than economists expect, but it's about half the number of just a few months ago. So hiring is still bright, but, it's losing steam. And, interestingly, a couple of thoughts. People aren't quitting jobs the way they were, especially in office roles. I think fast food is maybe even worse than it was, but office roles, people are thinking twice. And, things are starting to regionalize. East Coast and Mid-Atlantic is still relatively strong, but that Rust Belt of the Midwest, wow, they feel it first. A couple of oddball facts and maybe my own theory for you on this one, Pete. So the working theory, companies have had such a hard time hiring, and they've worked so hard, the thought of stopping or considering a reduction, unless it's absolutely necessary, I just don't think businesses are doing it quick this time.
Yeah.
There's still 1 million people out of the workforce from 2019, and this fact just blows my mind. About 0.5% of the entire workforce has missed 1 week of work this week, and that's putting tremendous pressure. In particular, I hear healthcare, where they just can't cover shifts, so they're still hiring. So strange times. You mapped it out really well.
Yeah, it truly is. We have the midterm elections now a week plus in the rearview mirror, Chris, but still all-consuming in a lot of ways. We saw what happened that night. There are still races of consequence that haven't been decided entirely. What do you see as the implications to the economy and jobs from the midterms?
Well, the economy trumps politics. And right now, inflation seems to be the most important topic, whether you're a politician, a consumer like you and I, a business leader. And what's really surprising is a huge contributor to inflation is rising wages. I know this doesn't make me a popular guest because wages matter, but wages are really expensive, and they normally go up every 12 months about 3.5%. It's been way over 5%. And that cycle of higher wages, we're not seeing it in our paychecks. It's actually causing, the Fed to consider, because of inflation, to continue to raise interest rates. So it's a strange circle that we're never really getting it in our paycheck. So interesting times.
We see Twitter laying off a couple thousand, Meta going big time, something like 11,000 or so. And you just seem to see at least indications of, and sometimes more concrete actions, Amazon, these big companies announcing layoffs of late, Chris. If I'm someone who wants to plan ahead, who likes that security, if you will, of planning ahead, and want to know what to do if I do get laid off, what advice is Placer's giving people right now?
So I think this is a time where everybody needs to realize we do have to manage our own careers. Companies don't do that for us anymore. I think we realize that. So the idea of getting ahead is really your job as a worker today, and that's kind of an interesting thing to think about. So a couple quick points. Get prepared. Changing careers doesn't have to be a real negative thing, even when it feels a little out of your control. So, the thought of getting ahead right now and doing some things like starting to network, I think a lot of folks have started to get back to a normal routine. But if you have a trade association or even friends that work in other businesses, or if you're on business social media sites like LinkedIn, go to a local event. Call your old coworker. Get together with a college friend. Learn about industries and other events, and get out there, because I always say that if you get out there, you make something happen for yourself.
Yeah.
And another key point.
Please.
Go ahead.
No, go right ahead, sir.
Just, I think a lot of folks, when facing this sort of uncertain times, just wants to go get another job. But it can be a blessing, Pete, like really just reflecting on yourself a bit, your strengths, your weaknesses, what skills you've developed, how you want your career to go. So starting that work to sort your own stuff out, well, you can't do your resume, you can't interview, you can't even go tell your story unless you think about you.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably what I like to help people with the most, is doing their work on themselves.
Yeah. It's so crazy. And you brought it up. It hadn't really occurred to me at the time, but I remember we talked about this several months ago, where you had a lot of people chasing that next job because there was better money and they could work from home and all that stuff, and have realized in the aftermath since, this really isn't for me, for whatever reason, that the job satisfaction they thought that was going to come from the bigger paycheck and the locale didn't always pan out. And so you do have certainly a lot of people that are maybe making preps to find something new, Chris. So it's great and timely advice as always.
I think the grass is not always greener. Yep. You're right on that many folks went out and explored something different. I wouldn't be afraid to call that old employer back. I've seen there's a change in philosophy and more grace right now. So, well, Pete, I'm happy to, Placers is here. If anybody, we talk about being a coach and offering workforce advice. If anybody has questions, please reach out and make sure they get to a good person. Yeah,
myplacers.com is an excellent resource, too. Chris, happy Thanksgiving to you and yours, and thanks as always. We'll talk again soon.
Thank you.
All right, 9:44 now here on WDEL.